Welcome back to COMM 1113. Chapter 5, Listening and Responding. Now, I'm sure this is something that's on your mind as you just delivered your first speech in the course, your informative speech. And as you know, you had to deliver it to an audience of 10. Were they listening? How did it change your perception of them based on the way that they watched you or listened to you as you spoke? Now, as you read Chapter 5, I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me a couple of years ago. When I was in grad school, I worked in administration at a university. And one day, the associate dean of the department came into my office and he said, "Katie, I really want to talk to you and check in on you and see how you're doing. Let's just dialogue about what's going on. I want you to know that I care about you." Now, that sounds like a great thing, but he sat in my office for 30 minutes like this. "Katie, I just want to let you know that I care about you and I think about you and I want you to know that you're valued around here and what can we do to help you?" At one point in the middle of our conversation, he took a phone call. Most of the time he was texting or looking at his phone. I'm sure I didn't know exactly what he was doing. Now, during that time, I was taking an entire 8-week course on listening and responding, and I just read what our textbook says about how we perceive people when they have their phones out, when they're communicating with us. It definitely changed my perception of the associate dean of our department. He said he cared, but his nonverbal communication, the way he was listening to me, did not convey the same message. Now, let's contrast that with something that happened not that long ago when I left that university. I walked into his office and asked if he had a moment to talk. He was on his phone when I walked in, but he opened his desk drawer, slipped his phone inside, closed his desk drawer, and said, "Sure, come on in." And then he and I had a 5-minute conversation, much shorter than that 30-minute conversation we'd had a few years prior, where he was focused on me. And I knew he was listening. So as you read Chapter 5, think about what kind of listener you are. Think about what kind of listener those around you are. We've all been in conversations with people we can tell aren't listening to us. Let's not be those people. In 2014, Jacqueline Woodson said, "Diversity is about us all. It's about learning how to walk through this together." And for many, many, many years, Mr. Rogers said, "Won't you be my neighbor?" Well, what does it mean to be a neighbor? I think it means that we understand that we accept people for who they are. In Chapter 6, you'll learn a lot about diversity and communication. Now, I could talk to you for hours about this chapter, and I think it's possibly the most important chapter in the entire textbook. And you'll notice that I've given you a lot of supplemental materials to read and watch as you go through this chapter. We live in a world today where people seem to only accept those who are exactly like them, whether that be their race, their sexuality, their political beliefs, their gender, their age, their ability level. There are so many different ways that people are different than us. But keep in mind, we learned at the beginning of this course, we are all made up of our own attitudes, beliefs, and values. We look at the world the way we do because of what's in here and just because of where we're raised in our culture. But even within cultures, no two people are the same. This week, I really want you to take a deep look at yourself and those around you. How do you communicate with people who aren't like you? What can you learn from people like Mr. Rogers, or maybe the 21st century version of Mr. Rogers, Ellen DeGeneres? And what can we learn from Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech? I believe, at least what I take away from his speech, is that once I see that I have my own somebodyness, then I can see somebody else's somebodyness.